Hey, I'm looking at this. All right, let's get right into this script. This is important. So, what we're going to be answering in this video is specifically how prepared you are for your Social Security disability insurance hearing or your supplemental security income hearing before the Social Security Administration for disability benefits. Now, here's the thing, there is a balancing act between essentially being prepared versus seeming believable. So, essentially, putting it another way, being able to answer questions with compassion, right? Feeling like you're just hearing the question for you're just answering it, just have that compassion for it, and actually answering questions with certainty. Now, I'm going to go through some basic levels of where people are usually at when they enter into the hearing process. Then we'll kind of pull this little nugget of theory apart so you get an understanding as to specifically where you want to be when you actually go in for your disability hearing. Kevin, thank you for the $5, $2, and $5 donation. Let me put some hearts on there. I'm going to go ahead and answer those questions about midway through the video. That way we can get people rolling on this stuff, and then we'll hit your questions real quick and be good to go. Now, with that said, let's get right into it. Level one. Where are people at with level one? Like, full wing it mode. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't have any advice. They're just winging it. They're showing it up. They are raw as the raw day can begin, right? Level two. That's what most people go into these hearings with. They have somebody whisper into their ears, just tell the truth. That's all you got to do, dude. You just got to tell the truth and the judge. Great, great, great advice. Just it needs everything else that goes with it. Otherwise, it's just kind of like nothing in the actual practical application of this thing coming down. Now, number three, you've watched, like level three, you've watched some videos on what goes on in these hearings, right? You have a couple of questions under your belt. You've heard it before. You hear some ideas in your head. You're starting to roll in that direction. Level four, you watched a lot of videos on the topic. You feel like you're pretty certain, but you are totally and completely unprepared with practical application. Level five, you have practiced the questions with someone else. That's important. A lot of you don't realize that even if you go ahead and stand in front of that mirror and over again, ask those questions and then answer them. Look at your facial expression. Look at the tone of how your face is reacting. You will do better with one of these hearings, even if it's just a telephonic hearing. Number six, level six, you have practiced the questions with the attorney. That's important because then the person that's going to be asking you cross-examination questions, you're going to be acquainted to their voice. You're going to be acquainted to the style of their questions, the rollout of the questions, how many questions there's going to be, all that stuff. That's a very, very high level there. It doesn't happen for a lot of people who even have attorneys. Level seven, you have run the questions to the point where you are bored. This is the magical golden first step level. If you can run the questions and be bored with them, that is the first level of where you should actually be at before you do a disability hearing. Level eight, you see the answers before they finish the question, and you stand your ground when the judge tries to clarify something in their own words that makes you look less disabled. This is a spot you want to try and attain. Most of you will never attain this. Most of you that are on disability benefits that go through a CDR and go through the process of losing your disability benefits will not actually get this down. It is important to master this skill because the only adjudicator at the end of the day that can ruin your morning breakfast sandwich is the SSA. Now we get to the next thing, which is this, okay? Level 9, you start directing the direction of the categories of the types of questions that you get. When you get to that point, you're in a really good spot because that says you know the trick questions, you know when they're coming, you know what phrases to include to cut it off so that you don't even have to go down that tricky road. This is absolutely crucial. This is absolutely important. It is incredibly smart for you to be on top of this. Now, the final level with all this is basically where you're at the point where you're bored with the questions, you know how to answer them, you know all the stuff, and you know in your file where things are and what dates are that things were completed. Surgeries, medical imaging, timelines, where in the record it is. It's at this hospital on this date. That's the ultimate. When you have it at that level, you're in a very, very good spot. 1% of applicants that go in front of the judges are actually at that spot. 1%. Okay. Now let's go back to the original theory here with this idea, answering questions with compassion versus answering questions with certainty. Okay. So the judge is going to know if you know what you're doing when you're answering stuff too well. But the reality of it is that the judge is listening for mistakes or miscalculations, or you just didn't have it down. We know pretty well when you're trying to flub it or fake it or basically go and do something that is not linear with who you actually are. And the judges have this thing which whoops a lot of the disabled claimants who are trying to get disability benefits. It whoops their butt. And that is the control find function for the entire file. The judges have an ability to search the entire file for key words. Those key words are absolute terrible, terrible things for the claimant because they can very quickly look up anything that they want to that you may not have realized that you have stated to your doctor throughout the years. And then all of a sudden, you're at the doctor because you slipped and fell off a ladder. What kind of ladder? Is it a super tall one? Were you painting? Why did you have a ladder? Why were you on a ladder? Boom, here we go. Here we roll. So the main function is you have to realize, and a lot of you don't get prepared like this, but you have to realize that your record is not as saintly as disabled as can be as you actually believe it is. I know that, and I think this is important to really understand. I know that a lot of you feel very strongly that you are this beautiful, wonderful, disabled butterfly, and that you wouldn't do anything in the world to cause havoc and terrible things. But to be fair, there's a lot of stuff in your file that they can use against you. So one of the big things you want to ask your attorney is, what is in my file that they can use against me? Because claimants never ask that question. I don't know why. It's something I would ask because I know my life has some good stuff in it, got some bad stuff in it. Yeah, but this is what's going to nip me in the butt. But everybody wants to focus on this. Everybody wants to make the best, the best that they can. They don't focus on why is this leaking. It's dripping, right? We gotta put a patch on that. Where's my glue? We don't focus on this enough when preparing for this. That's why with my claimants, I beat the hell out of them with questions, and then I help them shape their answers, and then I basically go in and tell them all the shit that they're afraid of, which is what's in their file that they're absolutely terrified of. Here's why. It's better for them to come up with an excuse that shows compassion and seems believable, right? Because their life is unique and magical and wonderful. And what they did for that reason might have a background, an origin story that makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's a show, if you will, and it just doesn't get better. But I think what's important, and I just want to clarify with this one little thing here, and I think this is relative to the entire process here. You have to understand that judges are looking for bullshit artists, okay? Judges are looking for people that have wiggled a way through making something look like something that it's actually not, right? That's just not actually true. So when they go through this, they're going to assess, are you winging it first time, don't know what you're doing? Or is this something you've been working on for 6 months and you feel really strong? Now, I will say this. When I run questions, I used to run questions basically, 3 months, 2 months, 2 weeks before, because otherwise it doesn't stay in their mind. Now, I do something a little different, which is where I run questions with claimants in the beginning of their filing too, to get them rolling in the right direction. That goes a massive way. When I get claimants, what are your top 5 impairments? When did each begin? When did each become severe? Why did you stop working? Why couldn't you do the functions of your job? What are your medication side effects? What are your symptoms and signs? If you don't have the basics under your tongue at the beginning of this, then you're not going to have them until right before the hearing when I'm working with you. And that's not good. We want you to be on top of this because remember, when you're giving answers, there's no magical robot or, little earbud or what. There's no magical headset or thing installed in your jaw or earrings or one of those little headset thingies that pops down the jaw. There's none of that, right? I mean, sure, if it's a telephonic one, you can have the paperwork set out in front of you as to top 5 this. What are your symptoms of that? When did this occur? You can have that because they're not going to be able to see what's in front of you. You can have that. But still, can you answer it consistently and accurately and professionally as they question you? Maybe, Maybe. Most of you can't. A lot of you think you're really good on your feet. And let me tell you something, 99% of you are shit on your feet. I wouldn't put you in a comedy stand-up because you would become the joke, because people would outthink you in that moment. And that's the problem. Everybody thinks that they're magic. They're good. They're quick. They're fast. They're going to get around this and we will that. And that's amazing. And I love it. And I think you're a beautiful creature. But at the same time, this is what's important. You have to focus on what you know. Because when you get asked a question that you don't know how to answer, you always have to go back to origin point. Why did you stop working? My top 5 impairments. Why do you have a tough time at home? My top 5 impairments. Why are you unable to drive? My top 5 impairments. Why do you have a tough time going to the grocery store? My top 5 impairments are, and I'm unable to grocery shop because. My top 5 impairments are, and I'm unable to tie my shoes or take a shower or brush my teeth because of that. Okay. So my point to you is, you have to go back to origin. And if you don't have origin at the very beginning of all this, man, it's never gonna be deep. You know what I mean? You want that thick in your head. You want a core memory that's the size of a double whopper sticking out in your ears, and you're just like, I got this thing right here. I can feel it. Whereas it's like, these giant speakers on my ears saying your top 5 impairments are the following. Boom, 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 boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're good to go. And that's one of the big things that's always amazed me. If you go ask a lot of these, insurance company claimants, big box firm claimants that have nobody helping them out, etc., what are your top 5 impairments? It's a total shit show. It's all over the damn place. You get answers that make no damn sense at all. You're getting symptoms flung at you. You're covered in signs and symptoms, but not a single diagnostic impression. And then they're like, well, what do you mean pain isn't an impairment? It's not. It's a symptom. It's a symptom. I mean, sure, you could put a fancy name for the, type of pain, give some arthropathy. You could play that game. But what is causing the pain? It's not buttercups that grew outside your door. It's not. I know you might have thought that. You've been like, oh, they were there when I got here and I don't know what happened. No. What are your top 5 medical conditions that limit your ability to work? If you can't answer that, you're not ready for a hearing. All right? You're just not ready. Now, some people get egotistical when they learn these questions. That is a problem. Keep your ego in check. The worst egos we come across with doing this type of law are male veterans. Worst egos by far, without a doubt. And then you get the 1% of them where you try to cut them off to say, look, I got to ask you some questions because you've been telling me a story mode for 10 minutes. I got to jump in and ask you questions to figure out where this is going. They lose their shit. They scream at you. They hang up the phone. I have employees that are afraid of these veterans because they don't know if they're going to come after them and do something. And what I know is this, right? The disgruntled lose your shit and then come back to the table and then not say you're sorry to the person you blew up on. That is a VA male classification. I see it all the time with the firm. Happens all the time. It's a small percentage of them, but it is bred into that system. And here's the thing. Here's what I don't like, is that we don't see those individuals coming back and apologizing to the person they lost their shit on. And that is something that those individuals really need to work on in a huge way, because it's just not acceptable. I mean, they are soldiers, they're adults. Sure, they have an impairment, but that doesn't mean that they can always just throw all their shit on somebody else and not come back to reality for that moment and not apologize to that person. That happens. That's one of those happened recently, and it affected the employee. I got to tell you, that's a big issue there. The ego, you stow that. You don't walk into that hearing with an ego, because that judge has done more hearings than you will ever do in your entire life. They did 3 hearings before you, 4 hearings before you. If you got your hearing at 2:30 in the day, they already had their entire from 8:30 a.m. forward of hearings. You are not at that judge's level, not in education, not in skill, not in expertise, not in intellectual quotient. They are better at it than you will ever be. No ego. All right, now let's go to some of these questions up here. Kevin said, Walter, does SSA consider homicidal and suicidal and mental illness of the unpredictable type to be the highest concern? I don't think that they consider that to be the highest concern. I think blindness would be the highest concern, but those are definitely up on the level. You're going to specifically want to look up the statute I-2-1-40, subsection A6 for SUIC and HOMI. That'll get you expedited claim status for those particulars. But remember, they're looking for Baker Acts that go with those. Kevin's $2 donation. I panhandle, but I'm batshit. What do you think? I mean, I represent hundreds and hundreds of people that panhandle. You're going to get arrested at some point and go to basically jail. But bottom line is this: they'll treat you while you're in there. So it is what it is. Just remember, if you go into a prison or a jail, most likely a jail, because panhandling, you don't go into prison. Just make sure that you request all those medical accommodations that you need, because I'm going to buy the records to go ahead and submit it to the court to go ahead and show that even while you were incarcerated, you need medical treatment, these pills, this treatment, etc. Kevin's $5 last donation notification. Here we go. If they know I'm not accountable for my behavior, will they cancel my check because I panhandle? If I'm not accountable for my behavior, everybody's always accountable for the behavior, unless they have truly lost mental capacity to actually function with intent. So, but if you're able to type this, you're still accountable for your behavior. Will they cancel my check because I panhandle? Here's the thing. Panhandling, you're going to get arrested at some point. Just make sure that you don't get arrested a lot with it, because then they push it to the time you spend in the clink to past 30 days. And if it gets past 30 days, then you're not getting that check. They may pull back the check, and then you got to go through the whole process to get the benefits reinstated, and it becomes a whole yada yada thing. So just keep in mind, you know what I mean? Keep it under the 30 days if you're in there, because bottom line is you want to keep the check. You want to keep everybody happy and on the roll. All right. Final thoughts with Are You Prepared for Your Social Security Disability Hearing? Here's the thing. The judges have internal biases no matter what you do. They come from a background where maybe they lost their father. Maybe they had a mean mother. Maybe they have kids that are sick right now. Maybe this or maybe that, or maybe this or maybe that. You have to be understanding of what the judge wants in, this hearing at the end of the day. Here's what the judge wants. They want it to stay on time. They don't want to put up with a bunch of BS. They want to like your claim at the end if they feel that they can approve it. They want to go ahead and have a smooth, creamy, straightforward hearing. Follows the usual practices of what actually occurs. If you are representing yourself, it's going to be the fastest thing you've ever done. You're in and out. They're rocket dockets for claimants who represent themselves. You're in and out mostly in 15 minutes. That's not a good sign. That's a bad sign. Also, and you also don't get cross-examination. There's nobody cross-examine the vocational expert. Basically, you're just like, you're doing yourself a 3-year disfavor. You're like, you just didn't think. That's what it comes down. But that's okay. So here's the bottom line. You have to make sure the judge is happy, because happy judges that like your claim, that see a way to approve it, are more likely to approve it than judges who are angry at you because you said things that offended them, because you said things that offended their ego. Do judges have egos? Yes. Are they allowed to have egos? Sure. Do they get away with saying horrific things and being mean and all that stuff? Absolutely. Does that mean that your ego has to take a seat because their ego is more important? Absolutely. Are they deciding the fate of your life going forward? Absolutely. Does that mean that they're like, a demi and you're not? Like a demigod type individual that decides the fate of you being able to have insurance and basically food and a check every month? Absolutely. So you want to make sure that you're somehow on their team for giving them what they need to approve you. That's crucial. Kevin, $5 donation. Let me put a little heart on there. It's legal in Colorado to panhandle away from intersections. Yeah, Colorado's super liberal and a lot of things like that. That's totally fine. But, keep in mind, just make sure. So here's the thing with panhandling in Colorado. You are probably established in the locations that you're currently panhandling. You know the people that panhandle in the area and everything's good. But at some point, somebody's going to be in all your spots that you walk to, and you're going to get pushed to a different spot, and you're going to say, screw it, I'm going to panhandle over here. Just be careful. Keep the amount of arrests low, even though in Colorado, they usually look the other way. All right. With that said, we're going to go to the next video. where, very simply put, we will answer questions live on the phone using our handy dandy phone holder. And this little device will hold the phone. And then basically from there, we'll go ahead and answer questions. Now, here's the basic thing you need to know. You got to use a fake name throughout this process when you call in. No story mode. No story mode. Start with your legal question. That way I know where your story is going. You guys call me and you go 10 minutes of story mode and don't tell me the shit I need to know. And I realize you tell me all the little cherry on top stuff, and you pick and then I ask you some tough questions, and some of you get pissed off because real quick I find out the problem. My job when you call is not to pat you on the back. My job is to find the problem so that you can fix it. That's my job. All right. Now, with that said, we're going to go ahead and catch up at the next video. Please remember to like and subscribe. Also, head over to Google. Type in the Disability Resolution Law Firm, Disability Resolution, Florida. Throw some stars up there on the reviews. If I help you in the next video, please consider leaving a review. It's free for you. So I will catch you in the next video. We'll go ahead and go live and go from there. And also, if you want the private session hour, little mini contract is below. I'll catch you later and see you soon. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.